Hey guys, good morning. We're gonna do some more nature journaling today. This is Rachel, by the way. Hello. And I know last time I said we were gonna do like a wildflower families, but I think today, because we decided, oh my goodness, excuse me, to do like a themed week sort of thing, with all of our nature center content this week. It's all about birds, and like, I mean, y'all know me. I cannot pass up an opportunity to do bird stuff. So we're gonna do some bird stuff in our journal today. I don't have like a super solid plan. I know my in-person nature journal club has done some bird sketching before, and Jack Laws or John Moore Laws. He has a really good book on drawing birds, but he's since actually updated that, and he's got a new method that I've actually ended up adopting because I find it works pretty well. So we'll be doing that kind of style of like gesture drawing, and as far as like which birds we cover, there's too many to pick. So I decided we were going to start by sketching and getting to know our state bird here in Kansas, the western meadowlark, who is just like a beautiful bird. And we'll just kind of see maybe what we're feeling. I haven't quite decided if we're going to do like one whole page dedicated to an animal. I feel like that'd be kind of nice because the last two journaling sessions we've done, we had like a compare and contrast. But on the other hand, there are some. Sorry, I inhaled a Cheerio earlier, so my throat is like mad at me at the moment. Um, yeah, there's some very interesting. They don't even have them on here, but similar species. I don't know. We'll just like sketch out like a breeding adult western meadowlark and get to know it a little bit, and then maybe we'll decide what we want to do. If we want to fill in the page with more details, like they've got some fun behaviors. Like there's one behavior called gaping, and they've got these just really long little blackbird beaks, right? And so they do this thing where they stick their beaks in the ground and open them up to look for seeds and grubs and stuff. So there's some fun behaviors that we could sketch. And then there's some really fun characteristics that maybe aren't super visible from a typical view of the meadowlark, like these white bars in the tail, which, I mean, for those of you who aren't like people who normally look at birds, once you figure out the characteristics of a meadowlark and what to look for, like you'll see them absolutely everywhere, every time of the year. And I don't know. So anyway, we'll figure that out. I've actually looked up allaboutbirds.org today as my resource. So this is the Western Meadowlark on allaboutbirds.org if you all want to pull up your own references of the meadowlark. And I like doing that when it's just me. Often what I'll do is just Google it and look at through an image gallery, because it's kind of nice seeing like a whole range of reference images if I'm not able to look at a bird in person. But since there's people of a lot of different skill levels and stuff, you'll find when you just Google birds or any animal or plant, really, a lot of things pop up that actually aren't that species, but maybe the keyword you used was in the paragraph. So this way we know for sure we're looking at identified western meadowlarks because we're using allaboutbirds.org. Let's see. I wonder, which reference do I want to pick? I want to pick something that like really looks like a meadowlark. I love too that, oh, this is fun. All About Birds uses a lot of video references from the Macaulay Library. So that's kind of cool too, because you can kind of watch a video of some of their behaviors and stuff. There he goes. Well, maybe let's go back to that like first image, because I think that was a pretty good one. Yeah, okay, because that gives you like, you got the flanks, you got the feet. It's not like standing upright in that posture you normally see a meadowlark in, but all the characteristics that matter are here. So yeah, let's start sketching. Hey guys, welcome. Hope you are gonna sketch along with me because we're gonna get to know our state bird. And again, if you're just joining me, I don't know what I'm gonna do after that. If we're gonna fill in different like notes and kind of make a field guide page for the meadowlark, or if we end up doing like similar species. Actually, both might be good. But at any rate, what I like to do when I'm starting with bird sketches, and remember, we're trying to do gestures, so like just getting some basic shapes in first before we start getting real serious with our drawing. That's a good skill to have for art in general, but especially when you're nature journaling, because you know you could have a critter that disappears as you're watching it. So I'm gonna start. This is a terrible angle for the camera, but that's okay. By kind of sketching in the outline of the head and then where it meets the back. Okay, so got a little back of the head here, and then I'm gonna loosely sketch in the back of the bird. Now, I think the original, a lot of guides will like be like, oh, draw a circle and that kind of thing to help guide yourself through it, but I don't know, it's kind of imprecise, and I find that I lose a lot of the actual details and characteristics of the bird when I do stuff like that. Okay, so there's the back of the bird. I'm gonna, oop, wake up. I'm gonna get its little eye in here. Cool. And then I'm gonna find the beak, and you'll notice that the beak, it kind of helps me when I draw like a line through the middle of the beak, and you'll find it often lines up with the eye. But this beak is like the bottom of it is very, very thick and large, so we'll just see what happens here. But we'll kind of just throw in the beak right there. That'll work. I'll add some more details here in a little bit, but that'll do it. And then I'm gonna come in and add the bottom of the bird. And another thing that can really help is, so on birds, the wrist, it's kind of hard to see on this particular bird because the feathers are kind of hiding it. Sometimes they'll poof up their feathers and tuck their wings into their body feathers. This is really bad in ducks and can really camouflage where a duck's wing is. But if you were to imagine, like, so here's some of the feathers are covering the wing, but right up here, you know, where the tip of the wing is and where it folds, that's actually the wrist of the bird. But what we can do is we can find that like main edge of the wing and just kind of mark in where that is. And then from there, it's usually a pretty straight line to the tip of the wing. So down here's the tip. I'm just going to do that. So there's a real quick, easy shape for where that goes. And then I'm going to fill in the belly, pop in the tail, and get some legs in there. And then you've got your gesture of your bird done. I'm working a lot slower right now than I normally would when just kind of roughly sketching in a bird shape. So just like practice. The more you practice this kind of stuff, like the more second nature it becomes. And you realize like, oh, one thing that's kind of fun about birds for me is that they have so many things in common as a group that it makes it really easy to pick out the individual differences, like in the shape of their body plan, and the arrangement of their toes, and like the specialization of their toes, because there's just so many things about them that are the same compared to mammals or something where there's just so many different body plans and stuff. Cool. Let's see, tail, boom. And these guys have fairly short tails, you notice that? That's a good characteristic to keep in mind, and since I've noticed that we're making a journal entry, I am going to write that down. Short, stubby tail. And I'm just using a red colored pencil. This is a mechanical one, but I like sketching with a colored pencil if I'm using a pencil, because if I really want to, if I put inks down, it's really easy to remove blue or red pencil marks from a drawing on the computer. So it's easy to just grab some like nice clean inks if I want to color it on the computer. Okay, so there's that. I'm gonna draw the little perch he's standing on first so that I know where the feet are gonna go. Bird feet are hard, and I think there's no easy way to sketch out bird feet, so you just gotta kind of do your best. And I think like the more you expose yourself to it, the better it gets. But you can see there's like the little, this is the ankle of the bird up here, and then it comes down here, and it gets thicker where it meets the toes, and then branches off. And most birds have these 3 toes in front, and then the one little thumb toe in the back. So it's fairly simple. we will go ahead and sketch them in. And being familiar with, those basic layouts and stuff makes it a little bit easier when you're trying to sketch like a feeder bird or something for you to approximate what's going on with those shapes so that you can, quickly sketch in some stuff and then, finish out your entry later on, or at the very least just get some real easy sketches down. I like watching bird cams, and we might actually do that on Thursday. I don't know. We'll see. But I like watching feeder cams or nest cams and stuff like that, and sketching the behaviors of the birds. And we just did in our in-person class sort of, I hope you can actually see what I'm doing. Sorry, guys. Yeah, we just did a, what's it called? Oh, I've lost my train of thought. It's a strange morning, y'all. But movement, that's what we did. A class on movement. And actually John Laws has a video lecture series on that, which is pretty cool. I highly recommend. I think I posted it in our GPNC Nature Journal Club at one point. But there's some really fun ways to try and document movement and behaviors and things like that. So I think that'd be a really fun thing to try and do for maybe on Thursday with our birds. Okay, well, that's approximately a meadowlark. And they have quite little long claws, I guess. Neat. Okay. I mean, it's not perfect, but it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to document what we're looking at. So I'm going to make a note. I don't have any colored pencils here or anything today. I'm not planning on coloring these sketches in. So, and I'm noticing that I've made the head a little bit too small. So we're going to adjust the proportions a bit. So I'm going to make notes on colors while we're doing this. So the legs are pink, I'm noticing. Not that you would ever really necessarily use that to identify a meadowlark, but it is cool to notice things like that. And nature journaling and birding is more than just like, identifying species and checking it off your list or whatever. We're here to just notice things about birds. Cool. Oh yeah, I should probably give him a face, shouldn't I? Let's see. Let's get a little eyeball here. Now their beaks, there's a lot of character in the beaks. And this is the sort of thing where if I was journaling a meadowlark, I was staying outside, I would expect that I wouldn't be able to like draw a super accurate beak in a quick amount of time. So that's why I think having this little line that shows the angle of the beak and where the center of the beak is really, really helpful, because then you can go back and make it the actual shape that you need. But I'm going to kind of look at the negative space around the beak. So like I'm noticing there's this like little triangle shape as the face moves into the beak, and then this other triangle shape. Does that make sense? I don't know. Well, that's how I'm going to tackle it. Like I've said before, anything that like takes you out of the I'm trying to be copying the picture exactly mindset is really, really helpful. And as we're practicing our journaling and sketching skills, one of our hopes is probably that we will develop some artistic skills, and this is a really good way to do that. If you're really struggling to like copy these shapes, one thing that a lot of us have found really helpful, I say us, like, the Nature Center staff has taken some various classes through professional organizations, and a lot of them have dealt with nature journaling. And there was an activity in Oklahoma recently where they had everybody turn the image upside down, and that again, you're like taking yourself out of the mindset of, oh, I'm drawing a bird, and then by changing the angle that you're looking at these things and changing the way that you're thinking about copying the shapes down, it lets you focus more on the actual shapes that you're documenting and less about like, is this a meadowlark that I'm drawing? Does that make sense? Okay, well, hopefully it makes a little bit of sense. I think that'll have to work. It's a very, very sharp, pointy beak, and yeah, I think that'll be good. So we'll just call that good. I hope everybody is doing well right now. Um, and I hope that you're journaling along with me today. Cool. Okay. Well, I'm happy with this little dude. So, the next important thing is going to be to get some of the patterns down for this bird. So, obviously, the first thing I think everybody notices about a meadowlark is the bright yellow belly and the very dark black necklace that they have, that V shape. So we're going to get that down. But since this is a western meadowlark, this is a good note for us to have in mind. The patterns on the face are pretty important, actually. So we'll do those two things first and try to get those down. And again, this would probably be a really important feature. Anything that you're noticing as being like a really important part of the bird, like the bright yellow belly, would be a good thing to try and get down ASAP when you're sketching out a bird that you've seen outside. So let's go ahead and get this shape in. Boom. There's our little necklace. I'm going to shade it in real quick so that my brain can see what I've just done and what I've separated out as being black versus yellow. Okay, and then I'm noticing this little groove on the beak here. This is like, some people call it a mustache, some people call it a malar stripe. It's kind of got some yellow going into it. It's not like a very precise line, and that's actually a kind of important trait for the meadowlark, because the eastern meadowlark, which really the best way to separate the species out is by their songs, but the eastern meadowlark, this whole little stripe here would be white with a very like distinct difference between them. That's like one of the very few characteristics you can use reliably to tell them apart if you're not able to hear them singing. I've read that one species has a bit more white on the tail, and I think the eastern, this is the western we're looking at right now, but the eastern has much darker stripes on the face. But again, like depending on lighting and stuff, I don't know that that's a really reliable trait to look for when you're trying to identify a bird like that. So let's go ahead in here and just get his little face stripes in. Beautiful. I love meadowlarks, guys. It makes me really happy every time I see one. Which is a lot because they're everywhere. Okay, and again, I'm just going to kind of color in those spots just so my brain can see what I was looking at. And yeah, there we go. There's our meadowlark. Boop, 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 boop. All of the important things, I think. And I did kind of go through and I added some little like triangles here to kind of show the shapes that are happening on the wings. And I think I'm just going to kind of loosely do that again, but like maybe like shading these little stripes in. It's not going to be precise, but you know, it's just trying to get down some of the general shapes and colors. And then we've got just some sparse, like, barring spots on the side, like that. So I think that'll do. And then we'll put some little stripes on the wings here. Maybe shade that in a bit and call it good. Okay, so we've got our meadowlark down. Let me get in between his little eye here. So I'm going to go ahead and start making notes about some of those features that we were pointing out. So we've got a black necklace, of course. We've got the vivid, oh dear, keep breaking my pencil. Vivid yellow belly. Beautiful. We got the pink legs. Short stubby tail. Not as stubby as a baby meadowlark though. Baby meadowlarks have the stubbiest little tails. Ooh. I'm almost out of pencil lead. Well, oh well. We're done with our pencil. I guess we're gonna make blue notes. Okay. We've got a bit of yellow. Oh dear. I get too like excited and I draw too hard. we've got a yellow throat. And I'm going to go ahead and describe, you know how I was saying that the eastern meadowlark has a very like crisp white mustache line right there underneath its beak? I'm going to describe the western meadowlark that we're drawing here as being maybe muddled. I think that's a good description. That makes sense to me and my brain. So, muddled, yellow, white. Ooh. Cool. I think that'll do. Cause yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. Cool. I'm happy. Let's see. I'm gonna, before we go any further, go ahead and write down the name of the bird that we've just illustrated. Oh, that's a terrible color. That's fine. Western meadowlark. They have a really fun genus name, which is Sternella. I love it. It's a good name. And probably just for clarity, because I like to do this with my journals as often as possible, I'm going to go ahead and add some black pen markings around the sketch that I've done so that I can like see the important shapes a bit better and stuff. But while I'm doing that, maybe while you're following along, wow, sorry, words, let's figure out what we want to do next with this page. Do you guys want to make this more of a field notes page for the meadowlark specifically? Or do we want to maybe look at something like a dickcissel, which is a very similar colored bird. It's got like the black necklace, and it's got the yellow belly, but it's a cardinal, so its body plan is very different. I think that's a fun comparison to make. But again, like I mentioned in the beginning, the meadowlark itself actually has some interesting traits that we could add in here if we wanted to step away for a minute from the comparisons. And heck, we could even have like, you know, maybe a note in the corner about a similar bird, and then maybe have the notes about the tail and some other characteristics of the meadowlark on the page. I don't know. Think about it. Tell me what you think. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and just go around my meadowlark here with my pen. I wish there was an easy, well, I was going to say I wish there was an easy way for us to look at a feeder together, and, you know, to look at the same birds at the same time, but, I mean, I literally have already said that we could do a feeder cam sort of thing later on this week, so I think we should do that. I think that'd be really fun. Bum, bum, bum. I don't know, gang, what you think? What should we do next with our page? Honestly, I am kind of leaning toward maybe taking some other notes, but maybe since we're trying to do at least, more of like an intro to sketching birds sort of thing for the folks who haven't had a lot of experience with nature journaling, maybe we could just keep drawing additional birds to kind of practice that skill and maybe do it a bit faster or something. I don't know. It's up to you guys. I miss your faces, so I'm going to let you dictate this. Cool. You know what really fascinates me about birds is their beaks when their mouths are open, because like it goes so much further, like the hinge of the jaw is so much further back. The mouth like sits back into the face, so it's very, very different from what it, like looking at it with its mouth closed, it should look like, or what you think it should look like. I don't know. I just find that interesting. We're just gonna color this little eye in. Look at him, he's pretty cute. they've got really flat heads. Have you noticed that? That is also kind of a defining trait of these meadowlarks. Cool. And I'm gonna say I'm happy with that. Such a meadowlark. All right, guys, what you think? Boom. Where's our people? Oh, nobody has answered my question. What we do next? Well, in that case, we're just gonna do whatever I want to do, unless you have any opinions. Oh, okay. Blackbirds. Oh, yeah. You know what? I've actually seen the female red-winged blackbirds pop up in a similar species thing for the meadowlark, which is kind of interesting. We can go back here and look at that, but I mean, you can kind of see a little bit. Like they do have a bit of yellow in them, I guess, but they're very different from the males. Yeah, and I hope that if you have feeders, you have access to feeders outside, that you're able to journal those guys. Although, as my friend Cassie Stanley, volunteer coordinator at the Nature Center, pointed out like yesterday, she has exactly 0 bird feeders and she still gets birds in her backyard. So she was looking at that earlier and having a good time with that. Well, you know what? I want to do a dickcissel, so we're going to do a dickcissel. I think I actually already pulled one up. I pulled up several birds because I was like, what do I want to sketch? And I was like, grassland birds? What about upland sandpipers? Okay, anyway, dickcissels are so fun. Okay, let's do a dickcissel. Ooh, this is a good picture because this bird... oh, sorry, Lisa, we are using allaboutbirds.org, which is by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I really recommend that site. This is just the page for the dickcissel, and we've gone into the ID information specifically, that page of this bird, and I've just zoomed in on that one particular image. But they also make an app for trying to identify birds called Merlin, and it's free. It's huge, so you have to have a lot of space on your phone, but it's so useful. And I think the best thing about that app, honestly, is that Merlin walks you through some good steps for bird identification, like what's the silhouette, what's the size, what, like things that help you learn the skills that you need to identify birds a bit easier. Okay, yeah, let's do dickcissels. One moment, though. Now, I really enjoy dickcissels a lot. They brighten my day. I don't know that, like, I've necessarily... We're going to do this one in blue because I ran out of my red. But, yeah, I don't know that I've met a lot of other people who are like, man, dickcissels are the best. Like, but they're just so fun. I think I just love the fact that they're a cardinal and that they look like a meadowlark. They have, like, the colors of a meadowlark, and they're just ubiquitous grassland birds, and you hear them singing all the time. They're little dinguses that, like, make the most obvious nests ever. They've got, like, pretty little cardinal blue eggs. I don't know, I just love dickcissels. They're so cool. So please look for them while you're out this summer. Oh goodness, I thought I had turned off notifications on my iPad. Oh well. Okay, we're gonna do dickcissel. So, same thing we did before. I'm going to try and go a little bit faster this time, though, and hopefully you can see. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way so y'all can actually see what I'm doing. But we're going to start by just doing the outline of the head. Then I'm going to do the back of the bird, which is actually quite straight. Maybe there's a little bit of a rump there. Okay, so, boom, there's my dickcissel. I did not give him enough of an angle there where his head meets his back. There we go, much better. Okay, and then I'm going to put his little eyeball in, boop, and then his little beak, and actually his, like, beak goes a little bit further below the eye, the line of the middle of the beak, I guess. There it is. Sure does look like a dickcissel, or something. So then I'll come in, get his little throat. I'm going to find the tip of his wing. So see, again, on this bird, too, the, like, feathers from the chest. Like this bird has stuck its wing into a pocket there to keep it kind of warm. But you can see if you follow like the line, the edge, leading edge of the wing, the tip of the wing is actually up here somewhere. So you just kind of have to look for that line because usually it's a fairly straight line, and then you can see where that wing shape would be. So we're going to come in here and put a little line for its wing and then kind of carry that all the way down here like this. So boom, easy, there's his wing. Let's get the belly. I'm just going to kind of mark where I see the leg is to give myself a reference point, and we'll just kind of fill them in. These guys are pretty round, and the proportions, like he's got a much bigger head compared to his body than the meadowlark did, and that's a pretty good indication that, you know, this is a smaller bird, or it's a big bird that has weird proportions, which sometimes is true. In this case, it's because it's a small bird. Yeah. So there's this little leg. Pew! I'm gonna put a little like circle there where his toes all meet because I can kind of make up the rest of the leg at that point. Because, you know, again, most birds have like the same sort of 3 toes thing that they've got going on. Okay, easy. And then I'm gonna do his tail. Now you'll notice on this guy, you can see like we're looking at the tail from kind of a weird angle, and these are some bird anatomical like words, but these are undertail coverts, and these are tail coverts. I don't remember the actual word for that actually now that I'm thinking about it, but at any rate, the point is, am I actually drawing on this? Oh well. The point is that the tail feathers are kind of sandwiched in between these like little rump feathers. So we're actually seeing that from this angle. So what I want to do is actually get like the triangle of the rump, and then same thing with the wing where I just got like a line where the tail goes. I'll do the same thing. I'm running out of space, but we'll do my best. So there's the tail coverts, and then right here in the middle-ish, we've got the little tail itself that's sandwiched in there. Very, very faint fork at the bottom of the tail that we're able to see from this angle, but otherwise no like huge details in that tail. So there we go. Easy peasy. Dick Sissel. Now that's super basic, but at this point, now that I have like the basic outline of the bird, I'm gonna try to figure out which shapes are the most important to me. So for me, the beak is super important on this bird because it just looks so different from our meadowlark. So I'm gonna do that first. And beaks in general on birds are a really important feature, so always a good bet to start with like fleshing out that actual beak shape. And what's kind of cool is you notice how the line of the forehead like continues into the beak almost. So I'm gonna do that on this guy. Cool. And then the bottom of the beak goes in like this. So you're starting to see, like, hopefully as you're drawing this, how cardinal-like this beak is. So now at this point, I'm gonna get this other little, like, jaw shape right there. Boom, 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 and a little nostril. And now I want to make sure, like, okay, I had this little through line here that I was using to indicate the direction of the beak, but now I want to go back and make sure that I'm actually getting the beak shape correctly. And it was pretty similar on the meadowlark, but on this bird, you see how it kind of dips up, and it really gives, like, the bottom mandible that really strong appearance. So I'm going to just modify that real quick. Much better. I think it's much better. Okay, cool. And then I think the other important things for me are going to be the black markings and the face markings. So I'm going to do that real quick, just roughly sketch in. This stripe goes above. It's like a little eyebrow that goes above his eye. And this is a male. The females are pretty similar but nondescript, so they're lacking that black V, the little necklace or bib or whatever you want to call it. But they still have that sort of cardinal shape and some yellows into their feathers. So that's, again, why like the shape is so important on these birds and why it's such a good exercise to try and like challenge yourself to sketch them out, to learn them and get to know them a bit better. Cool, so I'm going to give him his little white chin. And then his little black. I'm going to color that in so I know that it's a black marking. And then he's got like a little couple of black dots over here, so we'll just kind of shade in some little black dots. Neat. And then I'm going to make sure I get these other little facial stripes in, just because, you know, on the meadowlark that was a pretty important trait. So I want to make sure and get that in there. Cool. So that's my Dixisel. Now, fleshing out this a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and do his little legs, which again, you'll notice they get really thick toward the middle where all the toes meet. I feel like I keep pointing that out because I think when I first realized that was the first time I ever felt comfortable actually drawing bird feet, because I was like, oh, suddenly it makes sense. And you'll notice, like, on the little joints, especially on the toes, like, they have little toe pads underneath. So, I mean, once you, again, start to notice those patterns, it becomes pretty easy to just fill in shapes that maybe you're missing or can't quite see on the actual bird you're looking at. And I've totally just made his toes really, really large. So let's fix that. Oh, gosh. Little shorter than that, Rachel. Okay. Because they don't really extend past this part of the belly. Now I am kind of looking at my reference from the side here, but that's not an excuse, I guess. And then he's got a real thick thumb. Look at that thumb. Boom. And a claw. Cool. All right, that'll work. And let's see, what other shapes do we need to fill out? We need to fill out his wings. His tail I'm quite happy with at the moment, because we've got like those cool undertail coverts. So I just need to figure out what's going on with this wing. And you'll notice this wing shape kind of comes on the side here. So he's kind of got like his little butt, his little rump sticking out in between his wings. So we're just going to go in like that. And, you know, anytime you're looking at like really fine detailed anatomy kinds of stuff, it can be really, really useful to do anatomy tracings if you're not feeling super comfortable with anatomy. Like, people recommend this with you know, learning muscle groups on human anatomy and, you know, everything in between that and what we're doing here. So, but the more often you look at these birds and the more, like, you watch them from different angles when they're moving around and stuff, the more you'll get familiar with these different shapes, and that makes it so easy to, or so much easier rather, to pick out, like, okay, where's the edge of the wing? And there's the back of the wing that's like folded in on the sides instead of covering up the butt, aka the rump. But yeah, so there we go. Quite happy with that. Neat, okay. I'm happy with him. And now I've got him out, I'm going to make some other notes about him. So having drawn this out, what are the things that stick out to me? Actually, number one, which I didn't even really pay attention to before sketching this bird out, but I really noticed this like bright, like reddish chestnut color on the wing. That's really nice, and that's really different from the meadowlark. So I'm gonna make a note of that chestnut brown. Okay, I'm going to make a note of this yellow, but it kind of fades into that white, so I'm going to make a note of white down at the bottom and kind of make a note here that it like fades into each other like that, if that makes sense. It makes sense to me, and that's what matters. It's my journal, so that's how I'm going to write it. Let's see. Also, there's a lot of grays in this bird. So like the cheeks and, you know, some of the colors on the back, they're really gray, whereas the meadowlark was either like white or brown. It really didn't have the gray colors or that chestnut brown. So that's pretty different as well. And then of course, I gotta make a note about his cute little cardinal beak. Boom, that's fun. Okay, so that's my Dixisel, and I'm going to go ahead and write his name down as well. And the Dixisel, unlike the meadowlark, isn't actually here all year either, so that might be a good, like, natural history note to put down if you're going to put natural history notes in your journal entry about them. The dick thistles go down to South America in the winter, so they're only here in the summertime. So they're really like a grassland summer sign of spring sort of thing. You know what I mean? In fact, several of our staple grassland birds go down to places like Argentina during the winter, like the upland sandpiper. That's a very long distance migrant. And I think a lot of these birds, like, okay, upland sandpipers, dick thistles, they rely on eating insects, which I guess that makes sense because we don't have insects in the winter here in Kansas. And the meadowlark is the same way, where the meadowlark will actually feed on insects during the summertime, but the meadowlark actually switches to a diet of grains during the winter. So that allows it to stay in the state and to remain here every time of the year. Cool, so now I'm going to do the same thing with my dick thistle, where I'm going to go through and boop, 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 add some pen lines around it. I like making it more obvious to my future self when I come back and look at this drawing, what the most important shapes are now that I've added in so many different like notes on color and things like that. And notice again, like normal, I guess, I've been trying to do this a lot recently at any rate. I have used a lot of really angular lines instead of curves. I listened to a lecture one time where somebody pointed out that, you know, especially in the context of nature journaling, if you are just doing a lot of really smooth arcs and lines, that can kind of get in the way of the actual shapes because your hand just kind of automatically like smooths out all the details when you make a curve automatically. You see what I mean? And so I have personally found that by trying to use angles instead of curves as often as possible, I feel like I'm able to capture a bit more of like the personality of the different animals or plants or whatever that I'm trying to sketch. I did not do this on our meadowlark friend up there, but I'm going to color in the black. Maybe I should do that on the meadowlark friend. Let's see. So as you guys are kind of finishing up some of your sketches, and I hope, as always, you keep in mind that nature journaling isn't about creating beautiful, perfect art. It's about documenting things. And a side effect of nature journaling is that you might end up developing some art skills because you're paying such careful attention to things. But that's really not the goal. So don't get caught up on whether your drawing looks good, quote unquote. There's no such thing as bad drawings in nature journaling, because your drawing is capturing something important or useful about the animal, and maybe more tellingly, it's capturing something about the way you are viewing the animal and what you are noticing about the animal. That matters way more than whether or not your drawing is pretty. It's an exercise in growing familiarity, which just happens to involve art. And sometimes numbers. Man, I was looking forward to doing a numbers nature journaling session in person, but what I had in mind involved like painting on materials that I had to bring, so I don't know that I can expect people to be able to follow along with that at home, but I'll see if I can find some way to do that. Okay, there's the important shapes. And finally, a little tail dude. So I've got my little coverts. I've got my tail. And there we go, dick thistle. Now, for you guys who are journaling along with us, was there anything that you noticed about these birds that you are putting in your journals or that you would put in your journals? These kinds of exercises are really fun to do comparisons on when they're like next to each other like this. Oh, I kind of like that this one ended up being blue because it makes it separate. Oh gosh, I can't do words. It makes it, yeah, really like stand out. So, yeah, maybe what I will do as y'all are thinking about this, you know, please show me your comments about some things that you notice that you want to put in your journal entries. But I love how different their beaks are. So, I'm going to make a note in my pen here that this is a thin, pointed beak. And you know what? Okay, guys. Okay, hang on. Let me finish these notes and then. Thick, blocky is how I'm going to describe it. A thick, blocky beak. Okay. So I said that the I just got so excited. Sorry about that. I said that the Dixisol was a cardinal. The reason why the meadowlark looks so different and has this like nice, beautiful, pointy beak is because the meadowlark is a blackbird. I don't know if y'all realize that, but it is, and I think that's really cool because neither of these birds have like the coloration you associate with their normal like other members of the group. Like this, we think of cardinals as being bright red, or you know, peroxylas are also pretty bright red. And obviously we think of blackbirds as being black or having mostly black with other colorations added onto them. But like these guys are just meadowlark colored, but they belong to those different families. So it's such a good example of how the body plans and the silhouettes of the birds and the shapes of them is so important to notice. So we're gonna write up here that this is a blackbird. So we're gonna write blackbird family. And then we're going to write cardinal family. And in the cardinal family, we also have things like grosbeaks, which again have that like real thick, muscular beak. I love it. Okay, I'm pretty happy. I'm just going to emphasize with a little underline for funsies. Yeah, so, okay, there we have our very different body plans for our very similar birds. Oh, I forgot to make a note about, like, what day it was and stuff. Well, it's not too late. I don't even know what day it is. You know what? Never mind. Oh, gosh. Who else is getting really mixed up with your sense of time? I know it can't be just me. Okay. I'm happy. Let's see. What else, guys? What else would you want to add? And keep in mind, again, I'm not going to be coloring these in because I want to notice the shapes more than I notice the colors, I think, in this case. But we can certainly make notes about those things. What else? What else do you notice is different between them? Or what other interesting comparisons would you like to make between these groups to see if we can find similarities or differences? Oh, when my screen went dark, I could see pencil marks on my screen. I have like a matte screen protector on my iPad here, so like you can, yeah, I totally drew on it. Okay, maybe while we're thinking about what other comparisons to make, I'm just going to make a note about what time of the year they're here. So I'm going to say this is a year-round resident. And for this guy, I'm going to say he is a long-distance migrant. I'm also going to go ahead and make a note that these guys are both males, so that in the future, when we're going back and looking at this journal entry, you know, everybody who sees it, myself or, you know, you guys with your journal entries, we know that this is not necessarily representative of every member of this species. Okay, long-distance migrant. You know, I think I also want to make a note of the food that they eat, because I think that that's really important. Often when we think of birds and their beak shapes, we think of them being adapted for eating different kinds of things. And I think that makes it really interesting that the dick thistle eats insects year-round, even though it has this real thick beak we often associate with seed cracking, whereas the western meadowlark eats insects in the summer and actually switches to a diet of grains and seeds primarily in the winter. So sometimes we can infer things based on beak shape, but sometimes beak shape has more to do with your family group than an actual adaptation. And, wait, I lost my, there it is. And, you know, in the case of the meadowlark, it definitely uses those, like, sharp, pointy tips of that beak to stab it into the ground and pry it open. So it has a function, but, you know, just looking at it doesn't necessarily tell us that. Anything else? This might be just like a slightly shorter journaling session, and I'm quite happy with that. Well, oh shoot. There went my pen. That's fine. Maybe as one final note, I will write their habitat because they are both grassland birds. Oh, that's a great question, Doug. So, Doug asked the ones that are easily seen and heard of the dixisels, those are the males. And usually, yes, they're the ones that are calling or singing. And they're very visible when they sing, kind of like the meadowlark. They will perch up on top of like a tall ironweed or goldenrod or something, and they will sing from that perch where they're very visible. But the females are also quite visible. I see females quite a bit. They hang out around the males. They will call and make chipping noises and scolding and things like that. Meadowlarks are the same way. They'll scold and crawl around, and they're both actively hunting insects, often on the ground, but not always. So you do see the females as well. You're just not usually going to be noticing the females because they're singing. You're going to notice them because you see them, you hear them chipping, and often they're sounding the alarm because you're a little close to their nest. Which, their nest is really funny. It's just like, so meadowlarks build these very, like, intricate sort of, I'm gonna try and sketch it out. They build like a dome nest. So here's like the ground. Here's some grasses, and they weave the grasses around like this. And then there's like one little entrance on the side where they go inside there, and then their eggs, like 3 to 5 of them or so, are inside the nest. I've had jobs, and I have coworkers as well who have also done similar things, where we were tasked with finding these nests. So yeah, it's very, very intricate process. But yeah, we'll maybe put a little plant here. So they weave these very fancy, like, dome covered nests that have just one little side hatch. Whereas the dixisel makes kind of the same nest you would expect in a tree. Okay, but maybe instead of a tree where, you know, like there's a branch and then there's like a little open cup nest in the tree. So instead of doing that in a tree, they do that in like a little, like a forb, not even a shrub, but like a forb. So for example, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Baptisia indigo plants, but they have like, okay, these big long leaves, and okay, they've got like the big flower stalk on them, maybe. Beautiful. And then they have like, yeah, all these little leaves and stuff. So it's just like a regular plant, a forb, that grows in the grasslands, a wildflower, and they'll just build their nest inside that as if it's a tree branch. There's a little cup nest open to the air, and they've got these bright blue eggs. So that's how they build their nests, and that's why they're pretty susceptible to cowbird parasitism. So they share habitat with brown-headed cowbirds, which are an obligate brood parasite. They do not build their own nest, and you know, it's just really easy to find a dixisel nest because they're just kind of out in the open compared to these very covered nests. So that's pretty easy. I one time was monitoring a dixisel nest, and as I approached, the female was acting really, really agitated, And when I got up to the nest, I realized it was because every single egg in her nest was a cowbird egg, and she had lost all of her eggs. So they're, yeah, pretty susceptible to cowbirds. It's not the cowbirds' fault. Cowbirds are amazing animals. They're just really good at surviving, and they do really well with humans. But yeah, it's tough being a dick thistle. So that's how they build their nests. And I've seen their nests in like lead plant and wild blue indigo. I've seen it just on the ground. Usually it's not in the ground, but that was a weird case. But yeah, it's a little cup nest. Cool. All right, guys. Well, I guess that filled up our page, so I'm kind of done. Anything else before we peace out? I hope that if you guys journaled along, or if you end up doing any bird drawing or journaling, that you will post your stuff in the Nature Center Nature Journal Club group. If you go to our page and go to the groups tab, you'll find it right there pretty easily. I want people to share their work and what they're working on right now, but I'll post a picture of this finished one. And yeah, also I think Jack Laws is doing you're welcome, Doug. I think Jack Laws is doing today, this afternoon, maybe like 1 p.m. or noon. I don't know the time zone. At any rate, he's doing a demonstration that you can join, and I posted a link to that on the Nature Journal Club page. So if you have a minute this afternoon, tune in. Like, Jack Laws is amazing, and he's got so many good tips, and he's so encouraging. So yeah, please check that out. All right, cool. Well, I'm gonna take off. See you later, guys. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you on Thursday for another bird thing, and maybe we'll do some bird behaviors and other quick sketches from a live stream of a feeder from Cornell Lab of Ornithology. I think that'd be real fun. But yeah, okay. See ya!